Well, I am going live. Hello, Miss Angela. I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me. I should probably click on it myself and mute myself so that I don't get a double feedback there. But hello from Michigan. I hope everybody is doing awesome. I do miss North Carolina. I do not miss the pollen, but I do miss North Carolina and all of the wonderful North Carolinians and Duke Sucks. So there you go. Hello, Antonio. So let's just get started today. Who's got questions for me? Because we know that's what today is all about. You all have questions, I have answers. So, I should probably be able to see those questions. Let's work on this. Do, do, do. There are your comments. And somebody give me a question. I'm waiting for it. Good afternoon. Hey, Adeline. Hi, Charity. Y'all, I have not finished putting together my office, so excuse the bare background. I'm working on it. Right now, we're just lucky that I have a place to sit. Right? Just lucky. Hello, Sonia. So, who's got a question? I mean, I can pick a topic, but the point of today is that you all pick the topic. You pick the topic. I don't know. And also, I just finished moving boxes, so just forget all this too. What do y'all have for me? Oh, I miss you too, Miss Angela. Oh, nobody's got a question. So I guess that means I just need to go in. VA loans. Thank you. VA loans. And then title theory versus lien theory. And then beneficiary and title documents. All right. Let's get started with that then. So for this, let's talk about... trying to think of the best way to show them to you. Oh, I got it. So let's go here to your types of loans. Your types of loans. Don't mind the flashing, moving thing. All right. So when it comes to types of mortgages, you basically have two general types. It's either conventional or it's backed by the government. It's either conventional or it's backed by the government. I mean, those are your options. And what that means is if it's conventional, if the borrower doesn't pay, the government's not going to step in and help. They're just going to have to rely on foreclosure. But if it's a government loan, whether it's FHA or VA, USDA, that means if there is a foreclosure, the government's going to come in and help cover some of the bank's losses. Now, specifically, if you're asking about a VA loan, we should probably talk about the difference between FHA, VA, and USDA. Now, we just mentioned conventional loans are not insured or guaranteed by the government. However, FHA, VA, and USDA are government loans. The words I want you to remember for this is FHA insures loans and VA guarantees loans. The Veterans Administration, they guarantee loans. What's the difference? If you go to get any of these types of loans, the borrower still goes to the bank. The bank is the one giving the money. It's always the bank. It's just in the case of an FHA loan, FHA is providing the mortgage insurance. Going to the bank to get a conventional loan versus going to the bank to get an FHA loan, I mean, in both cases, the bank is giving the money. It's just in a conventional loan, you have private mortgage insurance. And in an FHA loan, you just have mortgage insurance, MIP, mortgage insurance premium. And just like with anything else with insurance, that insurance policy is not going to cover all of the bank's losses. If we're talking about a time when the bank is 100% guaranteed to get paid back every cent, then we're talking about the VA loan because it's a guarantee. Basically, the vet is given what we call a certificate of eligibility. And that certificate of eligibility says, okay, depending on how long you were in the armed forces and what your role is, we guarantee, and I'm making up a number here, let's say $300,000. We are guaranteeing $300,000. So you take this piece of paper, this certificate of eligibility, to the bank and tell them if they give you a loan for $300,000, we guarantee we will pay them back any monies of that $300,000 that they loan if you don't. Does that make sense? Is that what you were looking for there, Sonia? Go ahead and let me know so that I can explain some more if I need to. But that is the basics of VA loans. You need to know a VA loan is guaranteed, the FHA loan is insured, and it's the bank that gives the money. And I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I will wait a second. I really got to find where it's going to be instantaneous. I don't even know if that's a thing. Right? But just let me know if I need to go into further detail. Do people usually typically get conventional loans or FHA loans? It completely depends on the person's financial situation. Sometimes the FHA loans are often they are more affordable, but when you get an FHA loan, you do have to pay MIP, that mortgage insurance premium, for the life of the loan. Also, there's qualifications, there's limits on how much it can be. Anytime you enter, you involve the government, that means it's going to take a little bit longer. But plenty of people get FHA, plenty of people get VA, plenty of people get conventional. It really just depends on the person's personal situation. Perfect, Sonia. That worked for you. Great. Well, then let me move on to our next question. And to the people who got here a little late, throw them in the chat. I'm just going to go in the order of what they are in the chat. So somebody asked me to do title theory versus lien theory. Love's key. Title theory versus lien theory. All right. For this, I think we're going to need to draw. And by need to draw, I mean I'm going to just kill any artistic any thoughts you had of my artistic abilities, because I have none. So let's start with, and I'm going to lock this. Let's start with title theory. And I like to say this is like when you get a car loan. So in title theory, if you have a car loan, yeah, it's a spaceship car, leave me alone. You have a car loan. Oh, I said I need to change FHA that I put PMI, but it's MIP. Yeah, sometimes I don't go back and forth for the details there, Elena. It'll get you to the same place. So you got this car loan. You know that if you have a loan on the car, then this car actually belongs to the bank. That is the bank's car. And when you finish paying them money, the bank is going to give back to you title. Does that make sense? Like, I'm pretty sure you all know this. If you have a car loan, that's the bank's car. And they're going to keep title to the car until you pay them off the money. And then, this is a really terrible way to write title. Title comes back to you, and now you own the car once you pay off the loan. I'm pretty sure most of you all understand that. However, title theory is for when we talk about houses and mortgages. And it turns out most states that are actually title theory states, they use the word mortgage, but they actually don't use them. They use the word, but that's not what it is. And in actual title theory state, what happens is there's a seller, right? That seller is going to give a warranty deed, and that transfers title to a buyer. Now, the reason they did that is because the buyer gave the seller money. Right? That buyer gave the seller money. But the question becomes, where did that money come from? So that money came from the bank. The bank gives money to the buyer so that the buyer can give the sales price to the seller. You go to the bank to get money. But the bank doesn't give you money just because you're pretty. In exchange, the buyer has to give 2 documents. The first document is a promissory note, otherwise known as an IOU. This is going from the buyer to the bank. It's a promissory note, an IOU. Hey, I'm going to pay you back this $350,000 at 5% interest over 30 years. I'm going to make monthly payments. Yeah. And the second thing they're going to give is going to be, a deed of trust, otherwise known as a trust deed. It's a deed, so it's taking that title that the buyer got from the seller, and they're giving title not necessarily to the bank. It kind of branches off to a trustee who is hired by the bank. Does that make sense? So let me kind of do that flow again. The seller gives title to the buyer using a general warranty deed. The buyer then has given them money. That money came from the bank. But when the buyer got the money from the bank, they gave a promissory note and they transferred title to the bank / the trustee, which is why the buyer is the mortgagor, because they're giving this deed of trust, this collateral document, the thing that says, hey, you can sell my house if I don't pay you back. That makes the bank the beneficiary, and then you've got the trustee. It's a 3-party system. Does that make sense? I'm hoping so, but let me know. Hopefully so. Yay. Oh, then you needed lien theory. Let me make this a little smaller. So the way lien theory works is very similar. In a lien theory state, you've got a seller who gives a warranty deed to a buyer in exchange for money, right? In exchange for money, and then the buyer's getting money from the bank. The buyer's giving a promissory note, and they're giving a mortgage. This is why we use the word mortgage. And that mortgage is basically just a lien on the property. That is why banks in a lien theory state have to have judicial foreclosures, because they have to go to court because the buyer kept title. So there you go. All right. Can I explain beneficiary title? I think that did, Adeline. That beneficiary title comes from the trustee. I mean, the trustee has actual title, and then the bank is got this as the beneficiary. So there you go. I'm going to, Elena, I'll come back to discount points because I just did that the other day, but I will come back to it before we end tonight. And then you said the principle of progression and regression. All right. The principle of progression and regression. We got this. So, progression. This has to do with value going up. And regression has to go with value going down. Elevator go down. Elevator go up. Elevator go down. Okay, if you don't know that from Tiny Toons, I don't know what to tell you if you don't know the elevator go up and the elevator go down. It's just wonderful. Right? So when does this happen? Well, let's say somebody decides to build a house. They build a house. But there are much bigger houses. Okay, nobody said I was a great artist. There are much bigger houses in this neighborhood. Then that means okay, we should probably make this one a little bigger. That means the value of your house goes up. Let's say it is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and all the other houses are like 5 and 4 and maybe 6 and 5 and 5 and 3, and maybe this is 5 and 3. So let's, beds and baths. The value goes up because you're surrounded by better properties. That is the idea behind progression. The value is going up because you're surrounding yourself by bigger and better properties. Regression is this idea if you have the same house and it was, what did I say it was? 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. And you surround yourself with itty bitty little houses. Now all of a sudden, you're the best house on the block. Maybe all of these are 2-bedroom, 1, and this is a 2, maybe a 2. This is a 3 and a 1, and maybe this is a 3 and a 1, and this is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Like, you're surrounding yourself with smaller, lesser properties, which means the value of your house is going to be brought down because nobody wants to be the biggest house in the neighborhood. Like, if you have a nice house, you want it to be with other nice houses. Oh, and Antonio, you passed your state exam. What? Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I set this up. I don't know if you all can hear it. You tell me. Let's see.
Good job, good job. Good job, good job. G-double-O-D-J-O-B. Good job, good job.
So, Antonio, you tell me if you could hear that coming through. I'm not quite sure, but just in case you can, I'm going to do this.
My money don't jiggle, jiggle, it falls. I like to see you wiggle, wiggle, for sure.
I love it. Passing your state exam, passing your state exam, loving, loving state exam. Oh, and so now you go back next month to test for your national. You got this. You absolutely have this. I'm so proud of you. So, Andrea, did that help with the principle of progression and regression? Let me know. Now, you also know there's a whole bunch of words that relate to that. And I'm going to pull those up here. There's a whole bunch of words that relate to valuation and appraisal. These right here. All right, you've got progression and you've got regression. But then you also have all of these other ones. I would most definitely say you need to understand this vocab. Make sure you have to take the vocab. Hey, Perlita. Hello, darling. And Andrea, do you have to take state and national in California? Yes and no. In some states, we separate it out. But in a lot of states, like California, they just make it one big test. Just one big test, all jumbled together, get one score. Some states, they score the state questions separately than the national questions. So we're all doing state-specific questions. We're all doing national concepts. It's just a matter of if your state separates it out and California does not. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Next, Antonio, you said, can I explain the difference between meets and bounds, government survey, and lot and blocks? Yes, I can. Meets and bounds, government rectangular survey system, and lot and blocks. All right. So all of those that you're talking about, meets and bounds, I can spell. The government rectangular survey system and lot and block. These are all ways to describe title. What do I mean when I say describe title? Well, let's say I own 15 houses. And I'm going to sell you one of them. How do you know which one? And what if I have more than one house on one street? How do we make sure that you're getting the actual house that you paid for? This is where how you describe title, it's the legal description. It's the legal description for that piece of real property. And it turns out that you could either have meets and bounds, government rectangular survey system, or lot and block system. So let's talk about meets and bounds. Meets and bounds is where, think of it like a survey, where a meets and bounds description, let's say this is the river. And you have a piece of land that looks like this, and then here's the road. A meets and bounds description basically says, hey, let's start right here. This is our POB, our point of beginning. And what we say is we're going to go west, 400 feet. And then you get to this place where you stop. And then you're going to go north, maybe 362 feet. And then you're going to stop. Then you're going to go, east. And it'll say something like along the river. And then they'll stop. And then they'll say, oh, go south. Oh, let's say this was 400 feet. And then they're going to go south another 362 feet. And they're going to end right back here at this point of beginning. In a meets and bounds, what they're doing is they're creating a description of the perimeter of the property. So everything on the inside of this property, that's what you're getting. That is a meets and bounds description. Hopefully that helps. If you've got a government rectangular survey system, what you're doing is they're taking the map. So let's say I'm going to use Michigan. That's Michigan. And here's the UP. It's Michigan. I know I just killed Michigan. What they're doing is they're basically creating, come back here. They're creating this graph system where they're putting little boxes. They're turning the state into graph paper in order to tell you where something is located. And then they make more boxes and more boxes and more boxes. The government rectangular survey system is based off of imaginary lines. Now, this one is hard for me to describe, but I do have a video on this. There is a video on the government rectangular survey system on my YouTube channel. It's just, it takes a lot of art. And as you all can see, an artist I am not. But if you can imagine, in the states that use it, they're basically turning it into graph paper. This is the worst looking graph paper I've ever seen in my life. But they're basically turning the state into graph paper with these imaginary lines. This is the principal meridian. And then this would be your baseline. That is an awful description. I mean, just an awful drawing, but go with me. Just watch the video. That's what it is. Now, not all states use the government rectangular survey system. The original 13 colonies and Texas don't, some other states, but most of the United States do use the government rectangular survey system. And my video talks about that. Then you have number 3. Number 3 is the lot and block. Well, let's say I have a developer that creates a development, a subdivision. And there could be streets, there's streets, and maybe there's streets here, and then maybe there's a street here. So on that street, you might have a house here, and a house here, and a house here, and a house here, and a house here. And actually, I'm going to do this. Maybe there's a cross street that goes like this. Right? And then you would have houses, facing that way. So these houses have this address, and these houses have this address. Right? Well, altogether, this becomes a block, like a city block. And within a block, this could be lot 1, this could be lot 2, this could be lot 3, this could be lot 4, this could be lot 5, this could be lot 6. So it is a lot, like what number is it? And which block is it? I know that is pretty awful drawing, but does that help? Remember, all of this has to do with how am I going to give a legal description? We need a description that is so specific, it doesn't matter which surveyor goes out to look for the property, they can find it. All right. So, okay, yay! And Antonia, I'm wishing you the best of luck. So, that was everything people put in the chat. Do I have anything else I need to go over? Anything else I need to go over? I need to go over myself with a shower for after moving that stuff. But still. But and still. because I'm here for you all. Do 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 do. Nominal interest rate, effective interest rate, and variable interest rate. So I don't want you to go too far deep into the weeds with that one, right? I think the biggest one is that you need to understand a variable interest rate, which is basically the equivalent of an ARM mortgage. Your interest rate can change. Does that kind of make sense? Like when you talk about a variable interest rate, you're talking about an interest rate that can change. Now, I'm assuming you got these off of vocab words. I'm assuming you had this in a question somewhere, right? So when we talk about nominal interest rate, it's going to be, I think the best way to describe it is the nominal interest rate is like the stated interest rate. It's like the basic without taking into consideration inflation or anything else. And the effective interest rate is similar to APR, where it's taking to an effect other costs. You are not going to be a banker, so anything beyond this is too much, right? Anything on that is too much. And then Destiny, you said anything on valuation. You're struggling with that. Well, I do have a video on my YouTube page on appraisals. But when I think about the appraisal or valuation chapter, I think don't overthink it. And I know that's easy for me to say, but I don't want you to overthink it. The appraisal / valuation chapter has a lot of vocab, but there's only so much you can do with it. So we've got this vocab that's talking about value. Like these are words that have to do with what is something worth or cost. We know appraisals, anything that has value has characteristics. This highest and best use is a vocab word. This influences on value is just saying, hey, whatever's going on in our society can affect the value. Whatever's going on with our economy, that affects value. Whatever's going on with our politics, that's what we're talking about. That's kind of like a duh. You knew that one. You knew that it did. And then these principles of value are the idea that there are some ways, like generally what comes up must come down. That's pretty much how it works. There are some general concepts behind economics, which has to do with value and money. There's some pretty standard concepts behind that, and that's what these are. Then we know you have your 3 approaches to value, because we know when an appraiser goes out to do an appraisal, they can either use the sales comparison approach, they could use the cost approach, or they could use the direct income approach. Now again, I have a video on this. I would say this section, this page, knowing all of these and what the sales comparison approach is, what the cost approach is, what the direct income approach is, and NOI, all of that, that's probably where 60% of your questions, if not 70% of your questions, are going to come from. And then all of these words are basically just vocab. Like memorize the vocab, understand it, and be able to apply it. That's what we're talking about there. All right? But definitely watch my video. That's going to be the most helpful. So guys, anything else that I can go over for you? Anything else? And I know there's a little bit of a delay. And I'm glad, are you all okay with this 3 p.m. time? I feel, well, you're going to have to be. Because if I know I'm doing Mondays at 3, Tuesdays at 3, Wednesdays generally at 3, I might as well go ahead and do Friday at 3 too. And we know this month I'll be doing my national webinar or like crash course and a math crash course this month as well. So yay. Elena, you said math. Okay, so I did say I would go over discount points. So let's do that. Now, I do not mind going over discount points. And also, don't forget I have a video on it. So when it comes to discount points, remember, you say yes and it was perfect. Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. Yay. When it comes to discount points, we know they will cost you 1% of the loan amount. But what do? They move an interest rate by 1/8%. So what you're going to do is, let's say I'm getting a $300,000 loan at 5.5% for 30 years. And I go, yeah, I don't like that 5.5%. What do? Well, I would start here at 5.5%, which is actually 5 4/8. And I'm moving this to eighths because a point affects an interest rate by eighths. So we have to deal in eighths. It's kind of like if you're dealing with inches, you don't want to switch over to centimeters. They're two different things. It's just, they both measure length. They're just two different ways to look at it. Same thing here. We could look at this as decimals, but we're going to look at this as fractions because that's what we're dealing with. Every point moves your interest rate 1/8%. So if I start here and I pay a point, I pay 1 point, then now I'm going to get it 5 3/8. And that costs me 1% of the loan, which would be at $300,000, $3,000. So I have moved my new interest rate from 5 4/8, 5.5, to 5 3/8 simply by paying the bank $3,000 at closing. But maybe I still don't want that. So what do? I pay another point of 1% of the loan amount for another $3,000. And now my loan is at 5 2/8%, which just happens to be 5 1/4, guys. Well, maybe I don't want 5 1/4. What do? I pay another point. And now my loan's going to be at 5 1/8. Well, maybe that's not what I want either. And I could pay another point, which is another $3,000. And that would get me to 5%. So this is where I end at 5%. But this is where I started at 5.5%. If I want my 30 years to be at 5%, I need to write them a check for $3,000, $6,000, $9,000, $12,000. If I give them $12,000 at closing, they will give me a lower 30-year interest rate. So does that help? Elena, let me know if that helps with the points. You say, is my national cram course and math course going to be on Prep Agent or YouTube? That one is going to be Prep Agent. That one is Prep Agent. So let me know, are we good with the points? Are we good with the points? Yay, nay, maybe, I don't know. hoping so. I'm bringing home a baby bumblebee. Won't my mama be so proud of me? Yeah, that's the song that's in my head as I wait for you all to tell me. Good. Thank you, Elena. All right, our next one says, you don't understand hypothecate and subordination clause. Oh, I love hypothecation. It's one of my favorite words, along with extra territorial. I can spell territorial jurisdiction. I mean, my spelling is awful. Extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is called an ETJ. I love these. But let's talk about it. Oh, good, Antonio. I'm so glad. So, hypothecate. So remember I talked earlier about, hey, this is you, and you have a car, but that car has a loan, which means the car belongs to the bank. That means this car is collateral. That car is collateral for the loan. Well, think about if you go to a pawn shop. That's just terrible. If you go to a pawn shop, you know that what happens is, let's say you have a necklace. You have a pearl necklace. Okay, that's just awful. You would leave it at the pawn shop so that they would give you money. Then you give back the money to the pawn shop, and they give you back the necklace. Right? This is not hypothecation. Hypothecation is where the necklace, you would get to keep the necklace. And hypothecation, you're using the car as collateral, but you get to keep the car. You are pledging the car as collateral, but you get to keep it. See, without hypothecation, you had to leave the necklace at the pawn shop. With hypothecation, you could leave the pawn shop with the necklace. You can use the car as collateral, but you still get to drive with it. When we're talking about mortgages or deeds of trust, you need hypothecation because otherwise it's the bank's house, especially in a title theory state, but you need to live there. Hopefully that makes sense. And how can you tell if a contract would be invalid or void? I think you mean voidable or void? Adeline, do you mean voidable or void? Void has no legal standing versus voidable could possibly be voided. What do I mean? Well, if I look at this, a voidable contract could be upheld. Sorry. Upheld. It could be upheld by a court. Ever since I got my new iPad, it just rings, and I don't understand why. I didn't understand why it didn't used to do that. But it could be upheld by a court. So let's think of the example. Voidable could be if you signed and somebody was drunk or high. If somebody signed a contract drunk or high, you couldn't tell it just by the signature. I mean, most people could, even drunk or high, can sign their name. So whatever contract they signed would be valid. But if they can prove they were drunk or high, they could have a judge void it. So it would be a voidable contract. Versus if you had a void contract, let's say a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old signed a contract between each other. It wasn't ever a contract. 14-year-olds can't create a contract. 16-year-olds can't create a contract. So nobody created a contract. There was never a contract. It's kind of like my marriage to Jason Momoa. It doesn't exist. It does in my mind. But it just doesn't exist. It's not real. I have no legal standing to Jason Momoa. I might stare at him, maybe stalk him just a little bit, but there's nothing real there. It's void. All right. Sonia, you said escrow account. So an escrow account is basically the same as a trust account. And that is basically, this is an account telling the world and the bank and the government that I own the account, but it's not my money. So think about when you lease an apartment and you pay a security deposit. That money does not go to the owner. That money does not go to the property manager's checking account. It does, however, go into a trust account. So if this property manager went bankrupt or this owner went bankrupt, if somebody went bankrupt and the government was like, hey, we need to take all your monies, they would not touch this trust account. It's locked up because a trust account tells the world and the bank, hey, this account may belong to this person who owes money, but the money in the account is not theirs. That is a trust account. So escrow accounts is for documents of money. If it's an escrow account, it's for money. We talk about being in escrow because sometimes people give security deposits and they're like under contract, or they give earnest money. It goes into a trust account. But if it's an escrow or trust account, it means the account is held by one party, but the money in that account does not belong to that party. Does that help? I hope so. I hope so. Y'all, I'm trying to get Chris. If you've watched my videos, and Chris and I do videos together where we break down questions, I'm trying to get him to come guest star so we can do some live questions with you. I'm trying to get Maria to come guest star so we can do some questions. If there's somebody you want to ask questions to, or of course, once you get licensed, you have questions about what to do next. I want to get some people on here because I like to partay with y'all. And can I explain proration? Proration means split it. Split and pay for yours. What do I mean by this? So let's say, this is a perfect example, real life. This is April 2025. Now, I don't know if you know this, but on April 5th, I moved into my new townhome, and I'm renting. I moved in on April 5th. Now, let's pretend my rent was $2,000 a month. Do I want to be charged a complete $2,000 for that first month? No, because I didn't live here the first 4 days. I'm only paying a prorated amount. I'm paying for the time that I used. So I need to pay from the 5th to the 30th. That is a proration. It's split, and I pay for the portion I'm responsible for. So there you go. We do it at closings. If I'm buying, so let's say, Elena, you are buying my house, but it is November 11th, and I have not paid the taxes yet. Remember, once you become the owner, because taxes are specific liens, those taxes are now your problem. That's your problem. Instead, what you're going to do is you want that attorney or escrow agent or whoever it is to prorate. That means I should pay from January 1st through November. Either I pay the day of closing or I don't. Let's say I do pay the day of closing till November 11th. And you would owe from 11/12 to 12/31. That's all a proration is. It means you are splitting the difference. And with that, boys and girls, my tongue. I was going to say boys and girls, but then I thought about saying boys and squirrels, and then I was going to say girl. I don't know what that was. That was my tongue just not doing what it needed to do. But I do love answering these questions for you. Not that I don't love doing the, A, B, C, or D. Do not get me wrong. I love that. But more importantly, I love knowing that I can be a resource to you all right before your test, or we can make sure that we talk about exactly what you need. I'm not here to waste your time or mine. I'm here for us to pass this exam. So, having said that, I am going to go take my cousin back home. I've got some more boxes to unpack. God, send help, people. Send help, but I am happy to report it is 71 degrees finally today in the Michigan area that I am in, Novi, Michigan. I don't have to wear a sweatshirt. It's miraculous and beautiful, and it's like kind of cloudy too, so I'm not getting burned to a crisp by the sun. But I do miss pimento cheese, and y'all, I miss y'all. So, guys, I'll see you next week, Monday at 3, Tuesday at 3, Wednesday at 3. Of course, I'm Prep Agent, and I'll see you next Friday at 3. Bye, everybody. Bye.